I'm joined by Olusegun Okwade. Olusegun Okwade is the District Society, that's the chairman of the District Society of ICANN. He joins us virtually. Hello, thank you for joining us today.
Good morning, Perpetual, compliment of the season, and also good morning to all our viewers.
Thank you so much. Compliments of the season to you also. Let's start with the first story. Airlines are warning of flight delays and cancellation over fuel scarcity. Talk to us about this. I mean, this has been, it's been happening for long now. How can we get to that point where we wouldn't have this problem anymore?
What's disheartening that the country that has the major raw materials in producing this finished product is the one that is having the challenge. Also at the Yuletide season, when we should think that we should be having convenience and having fun. It boils down to the issue. There is not just only the airline. I'm sure you know the road transportation is facing the same challenges, and it is part of the things that we'll be talking to government about that. Can we have a functional refinery? We are still relying on Dangote. We've said it, that the business of the government is to create an enabling environment and allow the private sector that understand the business to see how they can do it. We can see how Dangote is turning around things, and possibly in the first quarter this will be done. I want to believe that with that, we have a sign of relief, and other private sector that have the intention of going into the business would have seen maybe a business plan of how Dangote is doing it to achieve more. But is this happening? And I can just imagine the hardship of people that will be traveling during this Yuletide period. But I think government should be intentional more in looking on how to allay the challenges of the masses rather than compounding the problem.
All right, now let's look at the impact of some of these things, talking about flight cancellations and delays. Let's talk a little about that. How does that sit with you? If you can hear me, Shesa, can you hear me? All right, so the first story, we're looking at the airlines warning of flight delays and cancellation over fuel scarcity. And for him, that's our guest. He's talking about how that Nigeria has everything it takes to not be in this situation. But unfortunately, this is where we are. And just like a lot of analysts have said, you know, the coming up to stream or the coming on board of Dangote Refinery probably by first quarter 2023 will help solve some of these challenges. If you can hear me, Olusegun, I was asking that, you know, you've talked about the part where we do not have this commodity in the quantity that we want. But let's also look at the impact, talking about flight cancellations and probably flight delays. How does that sit with you?
Yeah, well, for me, if you can hear me, the issue there is the essence of most people flying is for them to catch up with a swift appointment. I've seen instances where I have to run between Lagos and Abuja within a day, move around 9 in the morning, catch up with 11 o'clock flight, have a scheduled meeting for 1 p.m. and by 4, I'm on a return flight to Lagos. But with this that is happening, even though it's Yuletide period where people are trying to close.
All right, I think we'll just move on to the other story now, talking about World Bank raising concern about the timeline for, you know, the redesigned Naira notes to come into circulation. If you can hear me, I'd like to have your thoughts on that, because this isn't different from what a lot of persons are saying, because while we have analysts who are saying that, well, these policies are good, their concern had been the issue of timing. Let's have your thought.
And take care of itself. The government has said this is the normal, this is the stipulation.
All right, I guess we're having connection issues right there. Very quickly, just before we go, I'd like to have your thought on what World Bank has said. If you can hear me.
I can hear you very well, Perpetual. I don't know if you're hearing me.
I can, go ahead.
So what I'm saying is that the timing, whether it's going to be a month or a month and a half, let's start the implementation. People are getting the consciousness of this redesigning of the currency, and I think you and I, as the elite, people are counting on us to see how we can educate people the more on the features that they have to look out for, knowing fully well that the criminal elements out there are actually counterfeiting the currency so that people can have the confidence and the trust today. But for me, whether the timing is short or not, let's even make do with what we have. And if there is need for extension by the federal government, they will definitely be. Don't forget that an average Nigerian like the last minute rush. And if you don't put a timeline, you might end up that it will be an endless thing that you will not be able to implement. But on the part of it, I appreciate the fact that the World Bank is alluding to the fact that this is a right policy that we need in the country as we speak.
All right. Quickly now to 2023 budget funding. Before now, analysts were talking about the possibility of selling national assets so we can raise money and then reduce the pressure we are having on the revenue, because a lot is being spent borrowing, and we also have another being spent on, you know, debt servicing. What's your take on this particular development?
Yeah, I've been an advocate of you disposing of your assets if you have it. What you have done is that you are selling to the local content that will still manage this product or the asset judiciously for you. You can imagine if some of our refinery have been sold to the business owners who understands the business, by now we'll be yielding more dividend in the area of revenue and also create more employment. Because those that understand the business know that there is always time value of money and they want to do what is expected, compared to when government manage some of these things. So I consider it as right step in the right direction for those people to get what is expected. Let's fund the budget and relieve that aspect of borrowing so that we will not mortgage the future of our generation unborn.
All right, quickly now to the last story where we have oil firms. That's the federal government saying that oil firms will return to full production. Do you share that thought with the federal government?
Yeah, well, it's something that we should appreciate the government, even though they have failed in the last 9 years, like we read, that we are improving our daily production from 900 barrels to about 1.5, 1.6 million as at November. So it's a right step in the right direction, but the challenge there is how long will this private sector manage this firm for us? I said the government is corroborating what we've been saying as per the PPP of the public-private partnership, so that you can leave it in the hands of the government, in the hands of a private sector who understand the essence of business rather than in the hand of the government. So I feel that it's a good thing if the firm can come back, because now they have confidence that some of the things that they are producing, they can get value for it, rather than some criminal element siphoning and frustrating what they are doing.
You know, the question on the lips of a lot of analysts and even just industry watchers has been, what has the government been doing before now? Why did they have to wait until this time before they started showing that they were doing something really to address oil theft? Also remember that before now, there was...
Yeah, Perpetua, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you. Can you hear me? If you can hear me, go ahead, please.
Okay, well, I was just to round up my thoughts that, well, the surveillance is good. And I think it's an improvement. The Minister of State has promised us that before the exit in May, we should be having over 2.2 million barrels per day, which is a plus. Definitely, we can talk about giving some of this crude out, giving maybe after meeting the OPEC quota, we can avoid the remaining for local production. At least we now have a refinery in the hands of Dangote that we can give some of those products to process for us locally so that the citizen can benefit from it. So it's a good thing, but it's just to tell us and confirm what we're saying. That government should answer in the management of some of these businesses in the hand of the private sector so that an average citizen can benefit of the good things that God has endowed this country with, the national resources, the human capital that we have, and we can have the best as a citizen, living the lower kidder according to the rating in the area of poverty index as a nation.
All right, thank you so much, Olusegun Okonkwo, for sharing your thoughts with us.
Thank you very much for having me. Let me wish all our viewers Merry Christmas in advance to see you when we cross to the other side.
All right, bye for now. Still to come, counterfeits of the newly redesigned Naira notes have begun circulating in the Nigerian economy. That's the next conversation on the program. Stay with us.